Bear cub was stranded on a rock as the tide rose fast. What this baby did was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The waves crashed against the rocky shore that morning. The sound was louder than usual. Salt filled the air. The small fishing village was waking up slowly. People started their daily routines. They didn't know what was about to happen. They didn't know how a tiny child would change everything. Riley Chen was only 18 months old. She crawled around the small cottage near the beach. Her parents ran a small restaurant in the village. They were busy preparing for the morning customers. The baby played with her wooden blocks on the floor. She made happy sounds. She loved watching the ocean through the window. The waves always made her smile. The tide was coming in fast that day. It was faster than normal. The locals noticed it but didn't worry. They had seen many tides before. They knew the patterns. They thought they understood the ocean. But the ocean had its own plans that morning. A mother bear lived in the nearby forest. She had a small cub. The cub was only a few months old. It was curious about everything. It wanted to explore the world. The mother bear was looking for food. She left her cub for just a moment, just one moment. That's all it took. The bear cub wandered toward the shore. It had never seen the ocean before. The waves looked interesting. The seagulls were flying above. The cub wanted to play. It climbed down the rocks carefully. Its small paws slipped on the wet stones. But it kept going. It was too curious to stop. Marcus Stewart was walking his dog on the beach. He saw the cub from far away. He couldn't believe his eyes. A bear cub near the ocean? That was strange. He watched as the cub jumped from rock to rock. It was chasing something, maybe a crab, maybe just its own shadow. The cub reached a large rock surrounded by water. It was a good spot to play. The water wasn't deep yet, just a few inches. The cub splashed happily. It forgot about its mother. It forgot about everything except the fun it was having. Riley heard something through the window. It wasn't the usual sound of waves. It was different. She crawled to the window. She pulled herself up to look outside. Her tiny hands gripped the windowsill. She saw the cub on the rock. She made excited sounds. She had never seen a bear before. The tide kept rising. The water around the rock got deeper. The cub noticed but didn't understand. It tried to jump back to the shore, but the gap was too wide now. The water was too deep. The cub was trapped. It started to make worried sounds. Elena Rodriguez was opening her bakery. She heard the strange sounds. She looked toward the beach. She saw the cub on the rock. She saw the rising water. She knew this was bad. She ran outside to get help, but the fishermen were already out at sea. Most of the village was still sleeping. The cub's sounds got louder. It was scared now, really scared. The water kept rising. The waves were getting bigger. They splashed over the rock. The cub's fur was soaking wet. It shivered in the cold morning air. It called for its mother. But the mother was too far away. Riley watched everything from the window. She understood something was wrong, the way only children can understand. She didn't know words for danger. She didn't know what drowning meant. But she knew the cub needed help. She crawled away from the window. She headed toward the door. Grace Mitchell lived next door. She was feeding her chickens. She heard the cub's cries. She walked to the shore to see what was happening. She gasped when she saw the situation. The cub was in real danger. The tide was rising too fast. She didn't know what to do. The waves crashed harder against the rock. The cub slipped and almost fell. It caught itself just in time. Its claws scraped against the wet stone. It was using all its strength to hold on. but it was getting tired. Baby bears aren't strong swimmers. Everyone knew that. Riley reached the door. It was slightly open. Her parents were in the back room. They were counting money from yesterday. They didn't notice their daughter crawling outside. Riley pushed the door open wider. She crawled onto the porch. The ocean was right there, just across the small beach. Noah Thompson was jogging past. He stopped when he saw people gathering. He saw the cub on the rock. He saw the rising water. He was a good swimmer, but swimming to the rock was dangerous. The currents were strong. The waves were unpredictable. He hesitated. The mother bear appeared at the forest edge. She had realized her cub was missing. She followed its scent to the shore. She saw her baby trapped on the rock. She roared. It was a sound full of fear and anger. Everyone on the beach stepped back. Mother bears were dangerous when their cubs were in trouble. Riley heard the mother bear's roar, but she wasn't scared. She was focused on the cub. She crawled down the porch steps, one step at a time. Her knees touched the sand. It was cold and wet. She kept crawling. She made soft sounds, like she was talking to the cub. The water was almost covering the rock now. The cub was standing on the highest point. There wasn't much space left. Its eyes were wide with fear. It looked at its mother on the shore. It looked at the growing crowd of people. It didn't know who could help. It didn't know if anyone would help. Marcus Stewart tied his dog to a post. He waded into the water, but the mother bear growled at him. She thought he was a threat. He backed away. He couldn't get close with the mother bear watching. The situation was getting worse. Time was running out. Riley kept crawling. She was halfway to the water now. Sand stuck to her hands and knees. Her pink pajamas were getting dirty. But she didn't care. She had one thought in her mind. The cub needed help. She was going to help. Somehow. The waves were huge now. They crashed over the rock completely. The cub disappeared under the water for a second. It came up gasping. It was barely holding on. One more big wave might sweep it away. Everyone watched in horror. Nobody knew what to do. Something unexpected was about to happen. Something that would change everyone's understanding of courage. Something that would show the power of innocence. But nobody knew that yet. They were all focused on the struggling cub. They didn't notice the baby crawling toward the water. They didn't see what Riley was about to do. Vincent Caldwell was the village's oldest fisherman. He had seen many things in his 70 years. He had saved people from drowning. He had fought storms at sea. But this was different. The mother bear made it impossible to help. She paced back and forth on the shore. Her eyes never left her cub. She growled at anyone who came close. She was desperate. She was dangerous. She was a mother. The water was ice cold. Riley's hands touched the wet sand where the waves reached. She didn't flinch. She kept crawling forward. Her pajamas were soaked now. The waves pushed her back. But she was determined. She made soft cooing sounds. The same sound she made when she played with her toys. The same sound she made when she was happy. Grace Mitchell finally noticed the baby. She screamed, "Oh my God, the baby!" Everyone turned. They saw Riley crawling into the water. They saw her tiny body being pushed by the waves. Panic spread through the crowd. Now they had two problems: a drowning cub and a baby heading into danger. Elena dropped her bakery keys. She ran toward Riley, but she stopped when the mother bear turned toward her. The bear was confused now. She saw the humans moving. She didn't understand what was happening. She stood between her cub and the humans. She didn't know they were trying to help. She only knew they were getting closer. Riley's father, James Chen, heard the commotion. He came out of the restaurant's back door. He was carrying a bag of rice. He saw the crowd. He saw them pointing. Then he saw his daughter. The bag fell from his hands. Rice scattered everywhere. He ran faster than he had ever run before. The cub was losing strength. Its small paws kept slipping. The rock was too smooth, too wet. Every wave made it harder to hold on. It cried out again. A heartbreaking sound. A sound that touched everyone's heart. Even the tough fishermen had tears in their eyes. Riley reached deeper water. It came up to her chest. She couldn't crawl anymore, but she didn't stop. She started to float. Her arms moved in the water, not swimming exactly, but moving forward, like she knew what to do, like something was guiding her. Noah Thompson made a decision. He couldn't just watch. He ran to his car. He had rope in the trunk. He always kept it there for emergencies. He grabbed it and ran back. He tied one end around his waist. He asked Marcus to hold the other end. "I'm going in," he said. The mother bear saw Noah entering the water. She roared again, louder this time. She took a step toward him. Everyone gasped, but then something strange happened. Riley made a sound, a loud, clear sound, like she was calling someone. The mother bear stopped. She looked at the baby. She tilted her head. James reached the beach. He saw his daughter in the water. He screamed her name. "Riley! Riley!" But the baby didn't turn around. She kept moving toward the rock, toward the cub. James started to run into the water, but Elena grabbed his arm. "The bear!" she warned. The next wave was massive. It rose higher than all the others. Everyone saw it coming. They held their breath. The cub saw it too. It pressed itself against the rock. It closed its eyes. This was it. This was the wave that would sweep it away. But Riley saw the wave too. She did something nobody expected. She raised her arms. She made a loud sound, a sound that cut through the crashing water, a sound that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her. The cub opened its eyes. It looked at the baby. Their eyes met across the churning water. Time seemed to slow down. The wave crashed over the rock. Water exploded everywhere. Foam and spray filled the air. Nobody could see anything, just white water and chaos. James fell to his knees in the sand. Other parents in the crowd held their own children tighter. When the water cleared, the cub was still there. Barely. It had one paw hooked on a crack in the rock. Its body was being pulled by the current, but it was holding on. And Riley was closer now, much closer. She was only a few feet from the rock. Vincent Caldwell had seen enough. He was too old to be scared of a bear. He walked into the water, slowly, steadily. He didn't run. He didn't splash. He moved like he was approaching a frightened animal, which he was. 2 frightened animals, actually. The mother bear watched Vincent. She growled, but it was a different growl, less threatening, more worried. She looked at her cub. She looked at the old fisherman. She looked at the baby in the water. She was trying to understand, trying to decide. Riley reached the rock. She put her tiny hands on the wet stone. She tried to climb up, but she was too small. Her arms weren't strong enough. She slipped back into the water, but she tried again and again. Each time she made the same cooing sounds. Each time the cub watched her. Noah was in the water now too. The rope around his waist gave him confidence. He swam toward the rock. The current was strong, stronger than he expected. He fought against it. Marcus held the rope tight on the shore. He wrapped it around his hands. His knuckles were white from gripping so hard. Something shifted in the mother bear's behavior. She stopped growling. She sat down in the sand. She was still watching, still alert, but she wasn't threatening anyone anymore. It was like she understood, like she knew these humans were trying to help. Riley managed to grab a small ledge on the rock. She pulled herself up a few inches. The cub was right above her. They were face to face now, the baby and the bear. Two young creatures in a dangerous situation. The cub sniffed at Riley's hair. Riley giggled. Even in the middle of this crisis, she giggled. Vincent reached the rock from the other side. He moved carefully. One wrong move could scare the cub into the water. He spoke softly. Words that didn't matter, just the tone. Calm, steady, safe. The same voice he used with his grandchildren. The crowd on the shore had grown. People came from all over the village. They stood in silence, watching, praying. Some held hands. Some whispered to each other. But mostly they just watched. They watched the old fisherman and the young jogger trying to save a bear cub. They watched a baby do something impossible. James couldn't stand still anymore. He walked toward the water. The mother bear looked at him, but she didn't growl. She seemed to understand he was the baby's father. She let him pass. He waded in until the water reached his waist, then he stopped. He couldn't go further, not without scaring the cub. The cub was exhausted. Its body shook from cold and fear, but Riley's presence seemed to calm it. She kept making soft sounds. She reached up with one hand, very slowly. The cub sniffed her fingers. Then something amazing happened. The cub licked her hand, just once. A quick, gentle lick. Noah reached the rock. He grabbed onto it, breathing hard. The swim had been harder than he thought. He looked at Vincent. The old man nodded. They had to work together. They had to be careful. One person would hold the cub. The other would help Riley. But who would do what? Riley decided for them. She reached for the cub with both hands. She couldn't hold herself on the rock anymore. She started to slip, but her hands found the cub's wet fur. She held on. The cub didn't pull away. It let the baby hold it. Two babies holding on to each other in the middle of a crisis. The next wave was coming. Everyone could see it building in the distance. It was bigger than the last one, much bigger. Vincent and Noah looked at each other. They had seconds to act, seconds to save both the cub and Riley, seconds to do something that seemed impossible. The wave rose higher and higher. It blocked out the morning sun. Shadow fell over the rock, over the rescuers, over everyone. The mother bear stood up. She roared. But it wasn't an angry roar. It was fear, pure fear for her cub, and maybe for the human baby, too. What happened next would be talked about in the village for generations. What happened next would change everyone who saw it. What happened next would prove that miracles do exist. But first, that massive wave had to hit. And when it did, everything would change. The wave crashed down with the force of 1,000 hammers. Water exploded everywhere. White foam covered everything. The rock disappeared completely. Vincent, Noah, Riley, and the cub, all of them vanished under the churning water. The crowd screamed. James tried to run deeper into the water, but the retreating wave knocked him down. He scrambled in the sand, desperate to get back up. When the water cleared, the rock was empty. Nobody was there. The cub was gone. Riley was gone. Vincent and Noah were struggling in the water, but they were empty-handed. Marcus pulled on the rope, dragging Noah back toward shore. Vincent swam hard against the current, looking around frantically. "Riley!" James screamed. His voice broke. He was chest-deep in water now, diving under, searching. Other villagers ran into the water. Everyone was looking, searching, calling Riley's name. The mother bear ran back and forth on the beach, roaring for her cub. Then Elena saw something. A flash of pink in the water. Riley's pajamas. She was floating face up, 20 feet from the rock. Not moving, Vincent saw her at the same time. He swam toward her with strokes that defied his 70 years. He reached her in seconds. He grabbed her tiny body. She was limp. cold. But there was something else, something in her arms. She was holding the bear cub. Even unconscious, even in the water, she hadn't let go. The cub was coughing up water, but it was alive. It was clinging to Riley just as hard as she was holding it. They had saved each other. Vincent swam toward shore with both of them. It was the hardest swim of his life. The current fought him. His old muscles burned, but he kept going. James met him halfway. Together they carried Riley and the cub to the beach. They laid them on the sand. Riley wasn't breathing. Dr. Sarah Kingston was in the crowd. She had been walking her morning walk when she saw the commotion. She pushed through the people. She knelt beside Riley. She started CPR immediately. Chest compressions, rescue breaths. The crowd formed a circle around them. Everyone was praying, some out loud, some silently. The bear cub crawled away from Riley. It coughed up more water, it shook its wet fur, but it didn't go far. It stayed close, watching, as if it knew the baby had saved its life, as if it was waiting to see if she would be okay. Sarah worked on Riley. Compressions, breaths, compressions, breaths, nothing. James held his daughter's hand. Tears streamed down his face. "Please," he whispered, "please, baby, come back, please." The mother bear approached slowly. Everyone tensed, but she didn't attack. She walked past the humans. She went to her cub. She sniffed it all over, checking for injuries. The cub made small sounds, telling its mother what happened. The mother bear looked at Riley. She understood. 1 minute passed, 2 minutes. Sarah kept working. Her hands never stopped. Her determination never wavered. The crowd was silent except for quiet sobbing. Even the ocean seemed quieter, as if it was holding its breath too. Then Riley coughed, a small cough, then bigger. Water came out of her mouth. She gasped. Her eyes opened. She looked confused, scared. Then she saw her father. She reached for him. "Dada," she said, her first word in hours. The crowd erupted in cheers and tears, but Riley wasn't looking at her father anymore. She was looking around, searching. "Bear," she said. Another word, clear as day. She had never said that word before. She didn't even know what bears were called, but she said it now. "Bear." The mother bear heard the word. She picked up her cub gently in her mouth. She walked toward Riley. The crowd gasped. Some people stepped back, but the bear wasn't threatening. She was careful, deliberate. She brought her cub close to Riley. She set it down in the sand. The cub walked to Riley on wobbly legs. It was still weak, still scared, but it went to her. It sniffed her hand. Riley giggled, that beautiful baby giggle. She petted the cub's wet fur. The cub nuzzled her cheek. The crowd watched in amazement. A baby and a bear cub. 2 babies who had almost died together. Now safe together. Father Nicholas from the village church fell to his knees. "It's a miracle," he said. Others nodded. They had all seen it. They had all witnessed something impossible. A baby who couldn't swim had saved a drowning bear cub, and the cub had somehow helped save her too. The mother bear made a soft sound, not a growl, not a roar, something gentler. She looked at James, at Riley, at her cub. She seemed to be saying thank you. Then she picked up her cub again. Time to go home, time to return to the forest. But she paused. She looked back one more time. Riley waved, a tiny hand wave. "Bye-bye, bear," she said. 3 words now. 3 words she had learned in the middle of a crisis. The mother bear and cub disappeared into the tree line. But the connection remained. Everyone felt it, the bond that had formed in those terrible, beautiful moments. Dr. Kingston checked Riley thoroughly. "She's okay," she announced. "Cold and scared, but okay. It's miraculous. The water temperature alone should have—" She trailed off. She didn't want to say what could have happened. What should have happened? James carried Riley back to their cottage. His wife, Linda, had been in the shower. She had missed everything. She came out to find half the village in her yard, to find her husband crying, to find her daughter soaking wet and wrapped in someone's jacket. The story came out in pieces, fragments. Nobody could tell it properly. It was too big, too unbelievable. The news spread beyond the village. Reporters came. They wanted to interview everyone. They wanted pictures. They wanted to film the rock where it happened. But the villagers protected Riley. She was too young for fame, too innocent for media attention. They told the story, but they kept Riley safe. Vincent became a local hero. At 70, he had swum into dangerous waters to save a baby and a bear cub, but he deflected the praise. "The real hero is that little girl," he said. "She showed us what pure love looks like. No fear, no hesitation, just love." Noah and Marcus were celebrated too. Their rope rescue attempt had been brave. Even though the wave had changed everything, they had tried. They had risked their lives for others. The village honored them at a small ceremony, but like Vincent, they pointed to Riley as the real hero. The rock became a landmark. People came to see it, to touch it, to understand how a baby could have climbed it, how she could have held on to a bear cub in those waves. They took pictures. They told the story to their children. It became legend. But something else happened too. Something quieter but just as important. The village changed. People were kinder to each other. They helped more. They judged less. They had seen what pure compassion looked like. They had seen it in a baby's actions. It inspired them to be better. The bears kept their distance after that day. But sometimes, early in the morning, villagers would see them at the forest edge. The mother and her cub. Watching, remembering. The cub grew bigger and stronger, but people said it never forgot. They said it would sometimes walk to the beach and look at the rock, look at the village. Remember the baby who saved its life. Riley didn't remember much as she grew older. She was too young. But she kept saying bear for weeks after. She would point at the forest and say it. She would wake up at night and say it. Her parents thought she was dreaming. Maybe she was. Or maybe she was remembering. Maybe some connections go deeper than memory. The village installed a better warning system for high tides. They put up barriers near dangerous rocks. They trained more people in water rescue. They did everything to prevent another incident like that. But they also knew the truth. What happened that day wasn't about safety measures. It was about something deeper, something that couldn't be planned or prevented or explained. 3 months later, something strange happened. Riley was playing in the yard. Her parents were watching from the porch. A butterfly landed on her hand. A beautiful orange and black butterfly. Riley looked at it closely. She didn't try to catch it. She just watched. Then she did something odd. She made the same cooing sound she had made to the bear cub. The butterfly stayed on her hand. It opened and closed its wings. Other butterflies came. Soon, Riley was surrounded by them. They landed on her arms, her head, her shoulders. She giggled, that same beautiful giggle. Her parents watched in wonder. It was like she had a connection to nature, like animals trusted her in a special way. The story of the bear cub spread far beyond their village. It reached cities, it reached other countries. People wrote about it, they painted pictures of it, they made it into children's books. But none of them captured the real truth. None of them explained how a baby could do what Riley did. None of them understood the miracle. Because that's what it was, a miracle. Not the kind with angels and bright lights, but the quiet kind, the kind that happens when pure hearts meet in moments of crisis. The kind that shows us what we're capable of when we act from love instead of fear, the kind that changes everyone who witnesses it. 1 year passed. Riley was walking now. Running, actually. She loved the beach. Every morning, she would pull her parents toward the shore. She would stand at the water's edge and look out at the rock. Sometimes she would wave, like she was greeting an old friend. Her parents thought it was cute. They didn't know she was remembering. The village had returned to its quiet life. Fishing boats went out each morning. The bakery opened at dawn. People lived their lives. But something was different. There was a gentleness now, a awareness, like everyone had been touched by something sacred and was trying to live up to it. Then came the storm. It started as rain on a Tuesday morning. By evening, the wind was howling. The weather service said it would pass quickly. A small storm, they said, nothing to worry about. But fishermen know the sea. Vincent Caldwell felt it in his bones. This was bigger than they thought. The storm hit full force at midnight. Windows shattered, trees fell. The ocean rose higher than anyone had seen. Waves crashed over the seawall. Water flooded the streets. People evacuated to the church on the hill. It was the highest point in the village. Father Nicholas opened the doors to everyone. In the chaos, the Hendersons got separated from their son. Little Tommy Henderson was only 4 years old. He had been sleeping when the evacuation started. Somehow, in the confusion, they thought someone else had him. By the time they realized he was missing, the water was too high to go back. The search began at dawn. The storm had passed, but the damage was everywhere. Houses flooded, boats thrown onto streets, and Tommy was missing. The whole village searched. They looked in every building, under every piece of debris. Hours passed. Hope faded. Riley was with her parents at the church. She had been quiet during the storm, not scared, just watchful. When she heard about Tommy, she became restless. She pulled at her mother's hand. She pointed outside. She made sounds like she wanted to help look. "She's too young," Linda said. But Riley kept pulling. She was 2.5 now. Old enough to walk, but not old enough to understand danger. James picked her up. "We'll take a small walk," he said, just to calm her down. They walked through the village. The destruction was heartbreaking. Riley looked at everything with serious eyes. Then she did something strange. She pointed toward the forest. Not the beach, the forest. She made urgent sounds. "Bear," she said, her favorite word still. James laughed despite the situation. "No bears today, sweetheart?" But Riley kept pointing. She squirmed to get down. When James set her on the ground, she started walking toward the forest. Not running, walking with purpose, like she knew where she was going. They followed her. What else could they do? She led them past damaged houses, past fallen trees, right to the edge of the forest. Then she stopped. She made that cooing sound, the one from the day with the bear cub, the one she made with butterflies, a rustling in the bushes. James stepped back, ready to grab Riley. But what emerged wasn't dangerous. It was the bear cub, not so little anymore, a year older, bigger, stronger, but unmistakably the same bear. It looked at Riley, made a soft sound. Riley walked toward it. James tried to stop her, but Linda held his arm. "Wait," she whispered. Something was happening, something they needed to trust. The bear turned and walked into the forest. Riley followed. Her parents followed her. They walked for 10 minutes, 15. The path was rough. Storm damage everywhere. Then they heard it, crying. A child crying, Tommy's voice. He was somewhere ahead, but where? The bear led them to a huge fallen oak tree. Its roots had pulled up from the ground, creating a cave-like space underneath. And there was Tommy, muddy, scared, but alive. He had taken shelter under the roots when the storm hit. But now he was trapped. Branches had fallen, blocking his way out. The bear pawed at the branches. Riley understood immediately. She pulled at a smaller branch. Her tiny hands barely moved it, but she kept trying. James and Linda realized what was happening. They started clearing branches too, working together, humans and bear. It took 20 minutes to clear a path. Tommy crawled out, crying with relief. Linda scooped him up. James called out on his radio. "We found him! Tommy's safe!" The village erupted in celebration. Another miracle. Another impossible rescue. But the story wasn't over. The bear sat watching as Tommy was reunited with his parents. Riley walked over to it. She petted its fur like she had a year ago. The bear nuzzled her hand. Then it stood up. Time to go. But it looked back at the cleared shelter under the oak tree. That's when they saw her. The mother bear. She was lying in the shelter, not moving. The storm had injured her. A heavy branch across her back leg. Blood in her fur. She was weak, maybe dying. Her cub made worried sounds. It had been trying to help her when it heard Tommy crying. Dr. Kingston was still in the village. She came immediately when they called. She looked at the injured bear. "I'm not a vet," she said, "but I'll try." She worked carefully. The mother bear didn't fight. It was like she understood, like she trusted these humans because they had saved her cub once. The whole village helped. They brought medical supplies. They brought food for the bears. They took turns watching over the mother as she recovered. It took weeks, but she healed. The cub stayed by her side the whole time, and Riley visited every day. Her parents gave up trying to stop her. This was bigger than their fears. The bears became part of the village after that. Not pets, not tame, but connected. They would appear when someone was in trouble. When a hiker got lost, the bears led rescuers to him. When a house caught fire, the bears woke the neighbors with their roars. It was like they were paying back a debt, or maybe they just understood kindness. Riley grew up with this connection. By age 5, she could calm any frightened animal. Birds landed on her shoulders. Stray cats followed her home. Even the grumpiest dogs wagged their tails when she walked by. People started bringing injured animals to her. She would hold them, make her cooing sounds, and somehow they would get better faster. The scientists came eventually. They wanted to study Riley, to understand her gift. But tests showed nothing special. No unusual brain patterns, no genetic mutations. She was just a normal little girl, except she wasn't. Everyone who met her felt it. There was something different about her, something that couldn't be measured or explained. When Riley turned 7, she started having dreams. Vivid dreams about animals in trouble. She would wake up knowing exactly where to find them. A trapped rabbit in a drain pipe. An owl with a broken wing. A deer caught in an old fence. She never questioned the dreams, she just acted on them. The bear cub, now fully grown, would often accompany her on these rescues. It was strange to see a small girl walking through the forest with a large bear beside her. But no one in the village questioned it anymore. This was Riley, this was her gift. This was their miracle that kept giving. One winter morning, Riley woke up different. She was 10 now, old enough to understand that her gift was unusual. She had been careful at school, careful not to let other kids see too much, but this morning, she felt something changing. Her connection was growing stronger. She walked to the beach alone. The rock was still there, worn smoother by years of waves, but still standing. She climbed onto it easily now. She was bigger, stronger. She sat on the exact spot where she had found the cub all those years ago. And she remembered, not clearly, not like a normal memory. But she remembered the feeling the certainty that she had to help, the love that had driven her into the water. The grown bear appeared on the beach. It often did when she came here. It sat beside the rock, looking out at the ocean. Two old friends remembering a moment that had changed everything. Riley climbed down and sat beside it. She leaned against its warm fur. They watched the sunrise together. That's when she saw them. Dolphins, a whole pod, playing in the waves. But something was wrong. One dolphin was swimming differently, struggling. Riley stood up. The bear stood too. They both felt it. Another rescue was beginning. Another moment when Riley's gift would be needed. She walked into the water. Not crawling like a baby this time, walking with purpose. The bear followed until the water got too deep, then waited on the shore. It had learned to trust her. Everyone had learned to trust her, even when what she did seemed impossible. The dolphins circled closer. 5 of them, maybe 6. They weren't afraid of Riley. Animals never were. The struggling dolphin was in the middle of the pod. Riley could see now what was wrong. Fishing net. Old torn pieces wrapped around its tail. The dolphin couldn't swim properly. Every movement tangled it more. Riley dove under the water. She had learned to swim years ago. Vincent had taught her. The old fisherman said she took to water like she was born in it. Now she swam toward the trapped dolphin. The other dolphins made clicking sounds, like they were talking to her, guiding her. The tangled net was worse up close. Years of ocean currents had turned it into a deadly web. The dolphin's tail was cut from struggling. Blood clouded the water. Riley surfaced for air. She needed something sharp, something to cut the net, but she had nothing. She swam back toward shore. The bear was pacing at the waterline. Behind it, she saw people gathering. Word had spread. Riley was in the water with dolphins. Everyone came to watch, to worry, to witness whatever was about to happen. "Knife," Riley called out. "I need a knife." Marcus Stewart was there. He always carried a fishing knife. He waded into the water and handed it to her. "Be careful," he said. But he knew she would be. Riley was always careful with animals. She swam back to the dolphins. They parted to let her through. The injured one floated still now, too tired to fight. Riley took a deep breath and dove. The knife was sharp. Marcus kept it that way. She started cutting carefully, one strand at a time. The net was thick, stubborn. Her lungs burned for air. She surfaced, gasping. The dolphins surrounded her. One nudged her gently, like it was saying thank you, or maybe telling her to hurry. She dove again, cut more net. The dolphin's tail was almost free, just a few more cuts. But her hands were getting numb. The water was cold. Winter ocean. Something brushed against her leg. She looked down, another dolphin. It swam under her, lifting her slightly, helping her float while she worked. The intelligence in its eyes was startling. It understood what she was trying to do. It was helping her help its friend. The last strand of net fell away. The trapped dolphin moved its tail experimentally, then stronger. It was free. It swam in a circle, testing its movement. Then it came to Riley. It rubbed against her gently. A thank you, clear as words. Riley was tired now. The cold water had sapped her strength. She started swimming toward shore, but she was slower now. Her arms felt heavy. The dolphins noticed. They swam beside her, under her, helping her along. A girl being carried by dolphins, another impossible sight for the village to witness. She reached shallow water. The bear waded in to meet her. It had never done that before, never gone into the ocean, but it did now. For her. She grabbed its fur and let it help her to shore. Dolphins and bears and humans, all working together. Dr. Kingston was waiting with warm blankets. She wrapped Riley up, checking her for hypothermia. The girl was shivering but smiling. "The dolphin's okay," she said through chattering teeth. "It's free now." The dolphins hadn't left. They stayed in the shallow water, watching. The one Riley had freed came closest. It raised its head out of the water, made a sound. Not the usual dolphin click. Something else. Something that sounded almost like words. Like thank you in a language older than human speech. Marcus cleaned his knife and put it away. "That net was old," he said. "Years old. From back when we used those types. Before we knew better." There was guilt in his voice. Fishermen's nets killing ocean life. Even years later, even when they tried to be careful. That afternoon, the village council met. Emergency session. They voted unanimously. No more nets in their waters. Only line fishing from now on. It would mean less catch, less money. But they had seen too much. The bears, the dolphins, Riley. They couldn't ignore the connections anymore. Riley slept for 12 hours that night. Exhaustion from the cold water, from the rescue. Her parents took turns checking on her. She looked so normal when she slept. Just a regular 10-year-old girl. But they knew better. Everyone knew better. She dreamed that night, not about animals in trouble this time. Something different. She saw herself older, much older, standing on a cliff. The ocean spread out below, and animals everywhere. Bears, dolphins, birds, deer. All gathered, all waiting. For what? The dream didn't say, but it felt important, like a promise of something to come. The next morning brought visitors. Not from the village, from the city. A woman in an expensive suit, a man with cameras. They had heard about the dolphin rescue. They wanted to film Riley, to put her on television, to make her famous. "She's just a child," Linda said firmly. "We're not interested." But the woman persisted. She talked about money, about opportunities, about sharing Riley's gift with the world. James was tempted. They weren't rich. Money would help. But Riley decided for them. "No," she said simply. "The animals don't like cameras." And that was that. The woman argued. The man offered more money. But Riley wouldn't budge. She had an authority beyond her years when it came to animals. People had learned to respect it. The visitors left angry. They threatened to write stories anyway, to investigate, to find out the truth about the girl who talked to animals. But the village closed ranks. They protected their miracle. They protected Riley. That winter was harsh. Snow came early and stayed late. Food became scarce for the forest animals. Deer appeared at the edge of town, ribs showing through their hide. Birds fell from trees, too weak to fly. The village did what it could, put out feed, opened barns for shelter. But it wasn't enough. Riley organized the children. They gathered acorns and berries from their summer stores. They convinced their parents to share garden vegetables. They created feeding stations throughout the forest. The bear helped, showing them where animals gathered. Where help was needed most. One brutal night, the temperature dropped to record lows. Riley woke to silence, the kind of silence that meant death in the forest. She dressed quickly and went outside. The bear was already there, waiting. Together they walked into the frozen woods. They found the nest first. Baby birds barely alive. The mother frozen beside them. Riley gathered the chicks gently, put them inside her coat, the warmth of her body bringing them back. She carried them home, raised them through winter, fed them every few hours, taught them to fly in her bedroom. More rescues followed, a fox with frost-bitten paws, a family of rabbits trapped in a collapsed burrow. Each time, Riley knew exactly where to look, like the forest spoke to her, told her its secrets, showed her its pain. The village vet, Dr. Patterson, set up a makeshift wildlife hospital in his barn. Riley brought him patient after patient. He taught her basic animal medicine, how to splint a bird's wing, how to treat infections, how to help without harming. She learned faster than any student he'd ever had. Spring finally came, slow and muddy, but alive. The animals Riley had saved through winter emerged healthy. The birds she'd raised flew free, but stayed close. Her yard became a gathering place. Deer grazed beside the garden. Foxes played in the flowers. The bear lounged on the porch like a giant dog. On her 11th birthday, something changed again. Riley felt it the moment she woke up. An expansion of her gift. Not just animals now, plants too. She walked through the garden and dying flowers bloomed. She touched the old apple tree and it burst into unseasonable fruit. Her mother's struggled tomatoes suddenly grew huge and red. "It's getting stronger," she told her parents that night. They exchanged worried looks. They had protected her from fame so far. But how long could it last? How long before the world discovered their daughter could heal with a touch, could call dolphins from the sea, could make plants grow in defiance of seasons? The answer came 3 days later. A wildfire started in the mountains. Dry lightning in a drought year. It spread fast. Too fast. The wind pushed it toward the village. Evacuations ordered, people packing what they could, preparing to flee. But Riley stood at the edge of the forest, the bear beside her, the grown dolphins visible in the bay, the rescued birds circling overhead, all waiting, all watching her. She raised her hands to the burning mountain, and everyone stopped to see what impossible thing would happen next. She began to hum, not a song exactly, more like the cooing sound she'd made as a baby, but deeper now, older. The animals joined in, the bear's rumble, the dolphins' clicks carrying over the water, the birds' calls mixing together, a chorus of nature, a sound that seemed to come from the earth itself. The wind changed, subtle at first, then stronger, pushing the fire back on itself. Clouds gathered where the sky had been clear. Not normal clouds, dense and dark and full of rain. They opened up directly over the fire. Rain like waterfalls. Rain that shouldn't exist in a drought. The fire fought back, sent embers flying, tried to jump the brakes. But everywhere it tried to spread, the rain followed. Targeted, specific, impossible. The villagers stood in their yards, bags packed for evacuation, watching their strange little girl conduct nature like an orchestra. It took 6 hours, 6 hours of Riley standing perfectly still, humming her wordless song, calling rain from a cloudless sky. When the fire finally died, she collapsed. The bear caught her as she fell, carried her gently home while the village stood in stunned silence. She slept for 2 days. When she woke, the world had changed. Someone had filmed it. The whole thing. Posted it online before the village could stop them. The video went viral overnight. Millions of views. The girl who could control weather. The girl who commanded animals. The miracle child of the small fishing village. They came in droves after that. Scientists, reporters, religious leaders, government officials, all wanting to see Riley, to study her, to use her, to understand her. The village tried to protect her, put up barriers, posted guards, but there were too many. Riley made a decision. She would meet them, but on her terms, one at a time, in the presence of the bear. If anyone made her uncomfortable, the bear would growl and the meeting would end. Simple rules, non-negotiable. The first scientist brought equipment, scanners and sensors and complex machines. Riley let him run his tests. Everything came back normal, just like before. She was an ordinary girl doing extraordinary things. He left confused and frustrated. The first reporter asked endless questions. How did she do it? When did it start? Could she teach others? Riley answered simply, I don't do anything, I just listen. The animals tell me what they need, the plants show me how to help. The rain comes when it's called with love. The religious leader called her a prophet, said she was sent by God. Riley shook her head. I'm just Riley, I just love animals, that's all. He tried to convince her she was special, chosen, but she wouldn't listen. She didn't want to be special. She just wanted to help. The government official was different. She came with papers, legal documents, talk of studying Riley's abilities for the greater good. National interest, she called it. The bear growled before she even finished talking. Riley's parents stood firm. She's a child, James said. She stays here. The official left, but promised to return. There was something in her eyes that worried everyone. 3 nights later, Riley had the dream again, the one where she stood on the cliff. But this time it was clearer. She wasn't alone. The bear was there, old and gray. The dolphin swam below, and behind her, other children. Children like her. Children who could hear what nature was saying. The dream felt urgent now, like time was running short. She woke to find the bear at her window, not unusual, but its eyes held warning. Riley dressed quickly and followed it outside. The village was quiet, too quiet. Even the insects had stopped their nighttime chorus. Something was wrong. They walked to the forest edge. There, in the shadows, were men. Military uniforms, night vision equipment. They were surrounding the village, planning something. The government hadn't given up. They had just changed tactics. Riley touched the bear's fur, a signal they had developed. The bear melted back into the forest, silent as smoke. Within minutes, the forest came alive. Not with violence, but with noise. Every animal for miles began calling, howling, screeching, roaring, a cacophony that woke the entire village. Lights came on in houses. People emerged confused. The soldiers, startled by the sudden chaos, revealed themselves. Their plan to quietly take Riley had failed. The village formed a protective circle, fishermen with their strong arms, mothers with fierce eyes, even old Vincent, leaning on his cane but standing firm. The commanding officer stepped forward. "We have orders," he said. "The girl comes with us, for testing, for the good of science." The crowd pressed closer together. "Over our dead bodies," someone shouted. Others nodded agreement. Then Marina Volkov walked out of the crowd. She was new to the village, had arrived 6 months ago. Quiet woman, kept to herself. But now she stood straight and spoke with authority. "Stand down, Commander," she said. "Your orders have been revoked." The officer looked confused. Marina pulled out a badge. Intelligence Services. Higher rank than anyone expected. "I've been monitoring the situation," she said. "The girl stays here. Those are the new orders." She had been sent to watch Riley, but somewhere in those 6 months she had become one of them. The village had that effect on people. The soldiers left at dawn, grumbling but obedient. Marina stayed. She sat with Riley's parents over coffee. "They'll try again," she warned. "Different agencies, different countries. She's too valuable to ignore." Linda gripped her cup tighter. "Then what do we do?" "We prepare," Marina said. "We protect her, and we find the others." Riley looked up from her breakfast. "Others?" Marina nodded. "You're not the only one. There are children around the world showing similar abilities. The government knows about them. Other governments, too. It's a race now. Who can collect them first?" The news hit the village like a storm. Other children like Riley, other places where nature and humanity were connecting in impossible ways. It changed everything. Riley wasn't alone. Her gift wasn't unique. It was part of something bigger. Marina became their strategist. She knew how governments thought, how they operated. She helped the village create defenses, legal protections, media strategies, international connections. The village that had once tried to hide from the world now had to engage with it. Riley continued her work. Animals still needed help. Plants still wilted in the drought. But now she worked knowing she was part of a pattern, a change happening to humanity, or maybe an awakening of something that had always been there. The bear had adopted a new behavior. Every morning, it would stand at the forest edge and look in different directions, north, south, east, west, like it was listening to distant calls, like it was connected to something beyond the village. Riley understood. The network was growing. Then came the first contact. A letter from Brazil. Parents writing about their son who could heal sick animals with his songs. They had seen the videos of Riley. They wanted to know if it was real, if their son was normal, if they should be afraid. Riley wanted to write back immediately. But Marina counseled caution. Communications could be intercepted, locations discovered. They needed a safer way. It was Vincent who suggested the solution. Old fisherman's knowledge. How boats used to communicate before radios. Light signals, bird carriers, ocean currents carrying messages. They developed a system. The dolphins helped. They had connections to other pods, other oceans. Messages could travel through the water network, pod to pod, beach to beach. Soon, they were in contact with 5 other children: Japan, New Zealand, Iceland, Peru, South Africa, all showing variations of Riley's gift. The children shared experiences through their animal networks. A girl in Japan who could understand the language of whales. A boy in Peru who made rain dance in the desert. Twins in Iceland who swam with seals in freezing water. Each unique but connected. Riley felt less alone, but also more responsible. If there were others, they needed to find each other, to learn from each other, to protect each other. The dream of the cliff made more sense now. It wasn't just her destiny, it was theirs. All of them together. The village began preparations. If children would come here, they needed to be ready. Safe houses, educational facilities, protection protocols. The fishing village was transforming into something unprecedented. A sanctuary for the world's most unusual children. But not everyone supported the changes. Tom Bradley, owner of the largest fishing fleet, complained about lost profits. The new fishing restrictions hurt business. The media attention disrupted commerce. He held meetings, spread discontent, suggested maybe the girl should leave, for everyone's benefit. The bear started following Tom's movements, sitting outside his office, watching his boats, not threatening, just present. A reminder that Riley had protection beyond human laws. Tom got the message. His complaints became quieter, but the resentment remained. On Riley's 12th birthday, the first visitor arrived. Kenji from Japan. 11 years old, shy smile, broken English. His parents had sent him when threats in Tokyo became too serious. He arrived seasick and scared. Within an hour, he was in the bay, swimming with dolphins who had traveled from Japanese waters just to greet him. The ice broken, others followed. Sophia from Peru brought rain to the drought-stricken hills. The twins, Eric and Elsa, taught the local seals new fishing techniques. Each child added their gift to the village's growing power, but also their vulnerability. More children meant more attention, more danger. Marina's intelligence networks reported increased chatter. Governments were mobilizing, not just to study the children, to weaponize them. Weather control for military advantage, animal communication for spying, plant growth for agricultural warfare. The children's gifts were being seen as tools, not miracles. Riley called a gathering, all the children, all the animals they had bonded with. They met at the rock where it all began. The tide was low, the sun setting. The bear sat beside Riley. The dolphins circled in the water. Birds filled the air. "They want to use us," Riley said. 12 years old, but wise beyond measure. "They want to make us weapons, but that's not why we're here." The other children nodded. They had felt it too, the pressure, the expectations, the fear of what they might become. "So, what do we do?" asked Kenji. His whale songs could call tsunamis if twisted the wrong way. He had nightmares about it. They all had nightmares about their gifts being corrupted. Riley looked at each child, then at the animals, then at the village spread below. "We choose," she said. "We choose to help, not harm, to heal, not destroy, and we stay together, all of us." The bear rumbled agreement. The dolphins clicked approval. Even the birds seemed to sing assent. But choosing wasn't enough. They needed protection stronger than Marina's strategies. They needed something governments couldn't fight. They needed the world to understand what was really happening. Not mutant children to be studied, not weapons to be controlled, but evolution. Humanity's next step in harmony with nature. The answer came from Sophia, quiet Sophia, who rarely spoke but listened to everything. "The rain told me something," she said. "This isn't new, it's old, very old, hidden but always there. We're not the first." She looked at Riley. "In Peru, there are stories, cave paintings, children who spoke to condors, brought rain, healed with herbs, thousands of years ago. The revelation changed everything. If this had happened before, there might be records, wisdom, understanding of what they were becoming." Marina activated her network with new purpose. Archaeological sites, ancient text, indigenous stories, all suddenly relevant. Within weeks, evidence poured in. Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime stories of children who sang to animals. Native American legends of youth who could call storms. African tales of young healers who spoke with lions. The pattern emerged across cultures, across continents, across time. These children appeared in cycles. Times of great change. Times when humanity needed to remember its connection to nature. And always, always, they were feared by those in power. Hunted, hidden, sometimes killed. The pattern was clear. History was repeating. But this time was different. This time, they had each other. They had communication. They had a village that protected them. They had Marina's knowledge of modern threats. They had media to tell their story. They had hope that this cycle could end differently. Riley stood on the cliff from her dream, not alone now. The other children beside her, their animal companions surrounding them. Below, the ocean stretched endless. Above, the sky waited. Behind them, the world watched, waiting to see what these impossible children would become, waiting to see if humanity was ready for its next chapter. The choice was before them. Hide or reveal, fight or heal, fear or love. Riley felt the weight of it. 12 years old and holding the future in her small hands. But she wasn't afraid. The bear's warmth beside her. The dolphin's songs below. The children's trust around her. She knew what to choose. They all did. "Tomorrow," she said. "Tomorrow we show them, all of it. The truth about what we are, what we can do, what the world could be if people listened to nature again." The others nodded. Tomorrow would change everything. Tomorrow the world would learn that miracles weren't just stories. They were standing on a cliff, ready to reshape humanity's relationship with the earth. The sun set behind them. The first stars appeared, and in the village below, people prepared for the dawn that would bring either humanity's greatest hope or its greatest threat. The children who could save the world, if the world would let them. Dawn came painted in colors Riley had never seen before. Gold and rose, and deep purple bleeding across the sky. She stood on the cliff with the others, exactly as her dream had foretold. The bear beside her had gray in its muzzle now. Time had passed. Changes had come. But the bond remained unbreakable. The world's media had gathered on the beach below. Cameras pointed upward. Satellites focused from space. Billions watching live, waiting to see if the stories were true. If these children really could do the impossible. Riley felt the weight of those eyes, but more, she felt the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, the heartbeat of the ocean, the breath of the wind, all waiting, all ready. Together, she said to the others. They joined hands, Kenji on her left, Sophia on her right, the twins beyond them, all the children who had come. A circle of impossibility, they began to hum, the same sound Riley had made as a baby saving the bear cub, but fuller now, harmonized. The animals joined in, bears and dolphins, birds and seals, a chorus that seemed to rise from the earth itself. The sky responded first. Clouds gathered where none had been, not storm clouds, something else. They formed patterns, images, stories written in vapor and light, the history Sophia had spoken of, cave paintings made of clouds, ancient children calling rain, speaking to animals, healing the land. The ocean rose next, not in threat but in beauty, waves that defied physics, standing tall but not falling, forming shapes, showing the dolphins' memories. Every rescue, every connection, the network of consciousness that connected all waters. The earth itself began to sing. Flowers bloomed impossibly fast. Trees that had been dormant for decades burst into fruit. The barren hillsides exploded with green, life responding to the children's call, showing what the world could be. The bear stood on its hind legs and roared, not fierce but joyful. Other bears emerged from the forest, dozens of them. All the cubs Riley had saved over the years, all grown now, all remembering. Birds darkened the sky. Not just local birds, migrations changed course, Arctic terns and tropical parrots, eagles and hummingbirds, all drawn by the song, all adding their voices. In the ocean, whales breached, dolphins danced, seals spiraled, fish schooled in impossible patterns. The sea itself seemed to celebrate. But the true miracle wasn't the spectacle. It was what happened to the people watching. As the children's song reached them, something awakened. The fisherman felt the fish's perspective. The baker understood the wheat's joy. The mother sensed her garden's needs. One by one, across the village, around the world, people began to hear what the children heard, feel what they felt. The separation between human and nature dissolving. Not everyone, not completely, but enough. Enough to matter. Tom Bradley fell to his knees on the beach, the fishing fleet owner who had resented the changes. He was crying. "I can hear them," he sobbed. "The fish. I can hear what they think of us, what we've done to them." Marina lowered her weapon. She hadn't realized she'd drawn it. Protective instinct. But there was no threat here, only revelation, only connection. She could feel it too. The spider spinning its web in her cabin, the cat stalking mice, all part of something bigger. The government officials watched their careful plans crumble. How do you weaponize empathy? How do you control compassion? The children weren't weapons. They were teachers, showing humanity what it had forgotten. As the sun reached its peak, the phenomenon spread. Reports came in from around the world. Children in cities hearing pigeons' thoughts. Farmers understanding their crops' needs. Sailors feeling the ocean's moods. The gift was spreading, awakening, returning. Riley felt her mother's mind touch hers, not words but understanding. Pride, love, fear transformed into hope. All across the village, families reconnected on levels they'd never imagined. Barriers fell, hearts opened. The bear nuzzled Riley's hand. In its touch, she felt its memories. That day on the rock, the terror of drowning, the miracle of rescue, the years of friendship, all of it flowing between them. No longer human and animal, just two souls who had saved each other. The song reached its crescendo. The children raised their arms. The sky erupted in colors that had no names. The ocean sang harmonies that had never been heard. The earth pulsed with life that had been sleeping. And then, in perfect synchronization, every animal turned to look at the humans. Every bird, every fish, every mammal. Even the insects paused their buzzing, a moment of absolute attention. As if nature itself was asking a question. Will you listen now? Will you remember? Will you choose connection over control? Love over fear? Harmony over dominance? The silence that followed was deafening. The world held its breath, waiting for humanity's answer. It came from a child, not one of the gifted ones, just a little boy on the beach, maybe 4 years old. He toddled forward, away from his parents, walked right up to a bear that had come down from the cliff. The crowd gasped. His mother started forward, but the bear sat down, lowered its great head. The boy reached out with chubby fingers, touched the bear's nose, and giggled, that pure sound of joy that only children make. The bear huffed gently. Like laughter, the boy hugged its massive neck, and in that moment everyone understood. This was the answer, this simple trust, this fearless love. This was what the children had been trying to show them. The gifts were spreading because humanity was ready. Not all of it, not perfectly, but enough. Enough people willing to listen, to change, to remember their place in the web of life. Riley released her friend's hands. The formal demonstration was over, but the real work was just beginning. Teaching, healing, connecting, helping humanity remember its first language, the one spoken by wind and water, leaf and stone. As the crowd dispersed, transformed by what they'd witnessed, Riley walked down to the beach, to the rock where it all began. The tide was coming in, just like that day 13 years ago. But she wasn't afraid of the water anymore. Neither was the bear cub, grown old now, but still by her side. They sat together on the sand, watching the waves, knowing that tomorrow would bring challenges. Governments would still scheme. Fear would still fight love. But something fundamental had shifted. The children had shown the world what was possible, had awakened what was sleeping. A dolphin surfaced near shore, the same one she'd freed from the net years ago. It clicked a greeting. Riley clicked back. Perfect understanding, no translation needed. Her parents found her there as the sun set. They sat beside her, one on each side, a normal family watching the ocean. Except the bear leaning against them. Except the dolphins playing in the waves. Except the birds circling overhead. "What happens now?" her mother asked. Riley smiled. 12 years old, ancient as the earth, young as tomorrow's dawn. "Now we teach them," she said. "All of them, one person at a time, one animal at a time, one connection at a time, until the whole world remembers how to listen." The bear rumbled agreement. The dolphins sang approval. And somewhere in the distance, a child in another country heard their first animal thought, understood their first plant feeling, joined the growing choir of consciousness. The age of separation was ending. The age of connection had begun, and it had started with a baby crawling into the ocean to save a drowning bear, the smallest act of love rippling out to change the world. As the stars came out, Riley felt the truth her dream had shown her. This wasn't the end, it was the beginning. The children of Earth were awakening. Humanity was remembering. And in that remembering lay the hope of every living thing. The bear's fur was warm against her side. The ocean sang its eternal song. And Riley Chen, the girl who could hear what nature was saying, closed her eyes and listened to the world's heartbeat. Strong, steady, alive. Tomorrow she would teach. Tonight she would rest, surrounded by family, both human and not, knowing that the greatest adventure had only just begun. The adventure of showing humanity the way home. Back to the garden, back to the connection, back to love. The last dolphin call echoed across the water. The bear's breathing deepened into sleep. And all around the world, children opened their eyes to a new morning, hearing what had always been there, ready to heal what had been broken, ready to bridge what had been separated. The miracle wasn't that one child had saved a bear cub. The miracle was that in saving it, she had reminded humanity how to save itself. One connection at a time, one moment of love at a time, until the whole earth sang with the joy of reunion. And in that song lay the promise. This was how the world healed, not through force or fear or control, but through the fearless love of a child, the patient wisdom of animals, the endless forgiveness of nature, and the choice, made again and again, to listen instead of speak, to love instead of fear, to connect instead of separate. The tide came in, the tide went out, but the bond remained, unbreakable, eternal. A reminder that we are not alone. We never were. We are part of everything, and everything is part of us. The bear shifted in its sleep, pressing closer to Riley. She smiled, eyes still closed. Somewhere, a child was discovering they could understand their cat's thoughts. Somewhere, a farmer was realizing his crops were trying to tell him something. Somewhere, the barriers were falling. And on a beach in a small fishing village, a girl who had changed the world slept peacefully, knowing that morning would bring new challenges, new teachings, new connections. But tonight there was only peace, only love, only the eternal song of life celebrating its own continuation. The last star appeared. The first wave of tomorrow gathered strength far out at sea. And the world turned on, different now. Better, more whole, because a baby had crawled into danger for love. Because a village had chosen protection over profit. Because children had chosen revelation over hiding. Because sometimes the smallest acts of courage echo across eternity. The story ended where it began. With love, with connection, with the promise that no matter how dark the storm, how high the tide, how desperate the moment, love would find a way. Love always found a way. And in finding a way, it showed the way home.